You don't get to take credit for my work anymore, Jessica." The conference room went dead silent. Every pair of eyes turned to me. Emily Carter, the girl who barely spoke above a whisper in morning meetings, the one who always smiled politely when interrupted, the one everyone had learned to talk over. But not today. Not after 18 months of watching Jessica Monroe steal my ideas, dismiss my contributions, and treat me like her personal assistant while climbing the corporate ladder on my back. Jessica's perfectly painted lips parted in shock. Her hand froze mid-gesture, the printed presentation, my presentation, still clutched in her manicured fingers. The presentation I'd spent 3 weeks perfecting. The presentation that would secure the Hartwell account, the biggest client pitch of the quarter. The presentation she'd planned to deliver as her own work, just like she'd done a dozen times before. "Emily," she started, her voice dripping with that condescending sweetness she used whenever she needed to put me back in my place. "I think you're confused, sweetie. We worked on this together, remember? As a team." But I wasn't confused. Not anymore. And I definitely wasn't backing down. See, 18 months ago, I'd walked into Sterling & Associates as a junior marketing analyst, eager, talented, but terrified of confrontation. Jessica had befriended me immediately. Same start date, same department, same dreams of climbing to senior positions. She was everything I wasn't. Confident, loud, magnetic. She pulled me under her wing, and I was grateful. So grateful that I didn't notice when her mentorship became manipulation, when her collaboration became theft. It started small. A tagline I'd suggested suddenly became Jessica's brilliant idea in meetings. Campaign concepts I'd sketched at 2 a.m. were presented by her at 9 a.m. with no mention of my name. Then it escalated. Entire project proposals, client strategies, marketing decks that had my fingerprints all over them but her name at the top. And I stayed quiet. Because that's what I did. I stayed quiet when she interrupted me in meetings. Quiet when she forgot to include me in client calls for projects I'd built from scratch. Quiet when she laughed with the team about Emily being so spacey after she'd literally talked over me for the 5th time that day. The office had learned my role, the quiet girl, the background player, Jessica's shadow. But something changed last night. Something that made my hands shake with more than just fear as I walked into this presentation room. And Jessica Monroe was about to learn that quiet doesn't mean weak. 18 months earlier, I'd been so excited I could barely sleep the night before my first day. Sterling & Associates was a mid-sized marketing firm in downtown Seattle, the kind of place where creativity met corporate structure. My degree from State University wasn't Ivy League impressive, but my portfolio had landed me the interview, and somehow I'd nailed it. My mom had called that morning, her voice bright with pride. "You're going to do amazing things, Emily. Just remember, use your voice. Don't let people overlook you like you did in school." I'd promised her I would. I'd promised myself too. Jessica Monroe walked into the orientation room like she owned it. Power blazer, killer heels, the kind of confidence that made heads turn. When she sat next to me and extended her hand with a brilliant smile, I felt instant relief. Maybe I'd found an ally. "Jessica Monroe, you look as terrified as I feel," she'd laughed, though nothing about her seemed terrified. "First day, Emily Carter. Yeah, marketing analyst position." "No way. Me too. Looks like we're in this together." She'd squeezed my hand warmly. "Listen, I have a good feeling about us. Let's grab lunch after orientation, navigate this corporate maze as a team." That lunch became daily coffee runs. Coffee runs became after-work drinks. Within 2 weeks, Jessica and I were inseparable. She introduced me to everyone, pulled me into conversations, made me feel like I belonged. When I was too nervous to speak up in our first team meeting, she touched my arm afterward and whispered, "Don't worry, you'll find your voice. I've got your back until you do." I'd believed her. Our first project together was rebranding a local restaurant chain. I'd stayed up 3 nights straight developing a concept, Heritage Meets Modern, a campaign that honored the family recipes while attracting younger demographics. The visuals, the tagline, the entire strategy poured out of me. I was so proud. I'd sent everything to Jessica at 6 a.m., excited to present it together in our 10 a.m. meeting. At 9:55, she'd stopped by my desk, coffee in hand. "Hey, Em, you look exhausted. Why don't you sit this one out? Get some rest. I'll handle the presentation and make sure the team knows you contributed research." "Research?" I'd blinked, confused. "But Trust me," she'd smiled. "You're not ready for the spotlight yet. Baby steps, remember? I'm protecting you." I'd watched from my desk as she presented my entire concept to our director, Marcus Webb. Every slide, every tagline, every strategy point. The team loved it. Marcus loved it. Jessica glowed under the praise. When she came back, she'd set a latte on my desk. "See? No pressure on you. I mentioned you helped with research. You'll get there, Em. Just need more confidence first." Something felt wrong, but I swallowed it down. She was my friend. She was helping me, right? The second time, we were developing social media strategy for a tech startup. I'd created an entire content calendar, engagement tactics, influencer outreach plans. I'd sent it to Jessica for feedback before our client call. The client call I wasn't invited to. "Oh, Em, I'm so sorry," she'd gasped when I asked. "I thought I CC'd you on the calendar invite. My bad. Don't worry, though. I presented your research and they loved it. We got the account." My research. Again. But Jessica had bought lunch for the team to celebrate, pulled me into a hug, and whispered, "We make such a good team. You're the brains, I'm the voice. Perfect partnership." I'd smiled, nodded, pushed down the knot in my stomach. By month 6, the pattern was established. I created. Jessica presented. I stayed quiet. Jessica got promoted to senior analyst. I remained junior. The office dynamics shifted too. In meetings, people started looking at Jessica when they wanted ideas. When I tried to speak, someone would interrupt. Usually Jessica, always with a sweet smile and a "Oh, Em, hold that thought" that never circled back. The team started making jokes about Emily being in her own world, or "Emily's so quiet, sometimes I forget she's here." Jessica always laughed the hardest. By month 12, I'd stopped trying to speak up. What was the point? My words got swallowed, my ideas got stolen, my presence got erased. Marcus had once pulled me aside. "Emily, you're doing good work, but you need more initiative, more presence. Jessica's really stepping up. Maybe learn from her example." I'd wanted to scream that Jessica's example was built on my stolen work, but I just nodded and whispered, "I'll try harder." The only person who seemed to notice was Daniel Park, a senior designer who'd been at Sterling for 5 years. He'd caught my eye once during a meeting where Jessica cut me off mid-sentence to present my exact idea as her own. His jaw had tightened, but he'd said nothing. A week later, he'd stopped by my desk late one evening. "The Riverside campaign, that color theory breakdown was brilliant. Your background in design psychology shows." I'd looked up, stunned. "How did you know that was, I pay attention?" he'd said quietly. "More people should." Then he'd walked away, leaving me with the first spark of validation I'd felt in months. But validation didn't pay rent, didn't earn promotions, didn't stop Jessica from treating me like her assistant while presenting herself as the department's rising star. Until the Hartwell presentation. Until last night, when I'd finally seen the truth. The Hartwell Group was the white whale of Sterling and Associates, a luxury hotel chain expanding into experiential travel. They were looking for a complete brand overhaul, marketing strategy, digital presence, customer journey redesign. The account was worth $2.3 million over 3 years. Landing it meant bonuses, promotions, and serious recognition. When Marcus announced the pitch opportunity in our department meeting, Jessica's eyes had lit up like Christmas morning. She leaned forward immediately. "Marcus, I'd love to lead this. I've been researching luxury hospitality trends." "Actually," Marcus interrupted, "I want this to be collaborative. Emily, you've been quiet lately, but your analytics on customer retention have been solid. I want you and Jessica working on this together. Equal partners." My heart had jumped. Equal partners. Actual recognition. Jessica's smile had tightened almost imperceptibly before bouncing back to its usual brilliance. "Of course. Em and I work so well together. This is going to be amazing." Under the table, she'd squeezed my hand. Too hard. The project timeline was 3 weeks. Marcus wanted a full presentation deck, sample campaigns, projected ROI, and a creative pitch that would make Hartwell choose us over the 4 other firms competing. For the first few days, Jessica was surprisingly collaborative. We'd meet in the small conference room, laptops open, throwing ideas back and forth. Or rather, I'd throw ideas and Jessica would respond with, interesting, or "Let me think about that," while typing rapidly on her phone. By day 4, the dynamic shifted. "Em, I've been thinking," Jessica had said, closing her laptop. "We should divide and conquer. You're so good at the research and data side. Why don't you handle analytics, customer demographics, competitor analysis? I'll focus on the creative pitch and overall strategy. Then we'll combine everything." It sounded reasonable. Logical, even. "Okay, but we should still sync regularly." "Absolutely. Daily check-ins. Promise." She'd smiled. "We're a team." I'd thrown myself into research, spent hours analyzing Hartwell's current customer base, identifying gaps in their marketing, studying their competitors' strategies. I discovered their biggest weakness. They were attracting older, traditional luxury travelers, but completely missing the emerging market of affluent millennials and Gen Z who wanted transformative travel experiences, not just expensive hotels. That insight became the foundation for everything. I'd developed an entire strategy. Transformation, not just transaction. Repositioning Hartwell from stuffy luxury hotels to immersive experience destinations. I created customer personas, mapped journey touchpoints, designed a social media strategy featuring user-generated transformation stories, outlined partnership opportunities with local artists and wellness brands. I'd worked until 3 a.m. multiple nights, fueled by coffee and the desperate hope that this time, I'd be seen. Marcus had said equal partners. Our daily check-ins became every other day texts from Jessica. "Looking good, keep going," or "Trust the process." By week 2, I'd produced 87 slides of comprehensive strategy, complete with mock-ups, data visualizations, and campaign samples. I'd compiled everything into a master document and sent it to Jessica with a message. "Here's everything from my end. Ready to see your creative pitch and combine it all?" Her response came 2 hours later. "Looks amazing, Em. Let me work my magic on the presentation flow and creative elements. I'll have the full deck ready in a few days. Trust me, this is going to blow Marcus away." Something nagged at me, but I pushed it down. We were partners. She'd said so. 3 days before the presentation, I'd asked to see the combined deck. "It's still rough," Jessica had said. "Don't want you seeing it half finished. You know I'm a perfectionist." 2 days before. "Almost there. It's going to be so good, Em." The night before, at 11 p.m., she'd finally sent me the final presentation deck with a message. "Take a look. Made some small adjustments to flow, but your research is all there. See you tomorrow at the pitch." I'd opened the file, excited and nervous. Then I'd started scrolling. Slide 1. Hartwell Rebrand Strategy, presented by Jessica Monroe, Senior Analyst. My name appeared once at the bottom. Research Support, Emily Carter. Every single strategic concept I'd developed had Jessica's name on it. The transformation, not just transaction positioning. The customer personas, the social media strategy, the partnership frameworks. Even the specific taglines I'd written were presented as Jessica's creative work. My 87 slides of comprehensive strategy had been repackaged, reformatted, and branded as Jessica Monroe's vision. I'd sat there, staring at my laptop screen, hands trembling. Research support. After 3 weeks of 14-hour days, after the insights that made the entire pitch possible, after Marcus specifically saying equal partners, I was credited as research support. The nagging feeling I'd been suppressing for 18 months finally crystallized into burning clarity. This wasn't friendship. This wasn't mentorship. This wasn't even collaboration. This was theft. Systematic, calculated, deliberate theft. And Jessica knew exactly what she was doing. I'd scrolled back through our message history, seeing it all differently now. Every "trust me" was manipulation. Every "we're a team" was a lie. Every time she'd protected me from the spotlight, she'd actually been positioning herself to steal my work without resistance. She'd chosen me deliberately, the quiet girl, the non-confrontational one, the people-pleaser who'd rather swallow injustice than make a scene. I'd barely slept that night. Part of me wanted to call in sick, avoid the whole thing, let Jessica have her moment like I'd done a dozen times before. But another part of me, a part that had been silent for 18 months, maybe for my entire life, whispered something different. Enough. So I'd gotten up at 5 a.m., put on my best blazer, printed out my original presentation file with timestamps and metadata, and walked into Sterling & Associates with my heart pounding and my hands shaking. And when Jessica stood up in that conference room to present her work, I'd finally found my voice. "Emily, I think you're confused, sweetie. We worked on this together, remember? As a team." Jessica's voice was smooth, practiced. She glanced around the conference room, at Marcus, at Daniel, at our colleagues from design and analytics, with an expression of concerned patience. The same look she used when clarifying my ideas in meetings, the same tone that made me sound irrational. But I'd prepared for this. "No, Jessica, we didn't work on this together." My voice was steadier than I expected. "I worked on this. For 3 weeks. Alone. You asked me to handle research and strategy while you handled creative direction and presentation flow. But the creative direction and strategies in this deck, they're all mine. Come on." She laughed lightly, turning to Marcus. "I think she's just nervous about the big presentation. We've been collaborating for weeks." "Then why is your name the only one on the title slide?" I interrupted. I'd never interrupted anyone in my life. It felt like jumping off a cliff. "Why does it say, presented by Jessica Monroe, Senior Analyst with my name at the bottom as research support?" The room shifted. People sat up straighter. Daniel leaned forward, his eyes sharp. Marcus frowned. Jessica, I specifically said this was an equal partnership. It is. Jessica's smile wavered. Emily did amazing research, foundational work that I built the strategy on, but the core concepts, the positioning, the creative vision, those came from my experience in luxury marketing. Stop. The word came out harder than I intended. I pulled out my printed documents, pages of time-stamped files, email records, my original presentation deck. My hands were shaking, but I kept going. The transformation, not just transaction positioning, I developed that on day 6 after analyzing Hartwell's demographic gaps. Here's my original strategy document, dated November 14th, sent to you at 6:47 a.m. I placed the pages on the conference table. Jessica's confident posture cracked slightly. The customer personas, transformation-seeking millennial, the wellness executive, the cultural explorer, I created those based on 3 days of market research. The social media strategy featuring user transformation stories, mine. The partnership framework with local artists and wellness brands, also mine. This is really inappropriate. Jessica started, but her voice had lost its smoothness. What's inappropriate, I continued, my voice gaining strength, is you taking credit for 18 months of my work. The Riverside restaurant rebrand, that heritage meets modern concept you presented, I sent you that entire strategy at 6 a.m. and you presented it as yours 3 hours later. The tech startup social media calendar that you pitched? I created every single post and you presented it at a client call I wasn't invited to. The room was completely silent now. Marcus's expression had gone from confused to deeply concerned. Several colleagues were exchanging glances. Jessica's face flushed. Marcus, I don't know what's gotten into her. We've always collaborated. Collaboration means both names on the work, Daniel spoke up quietly. His first words of the meeting. I've watched this dynamic for months. Emily creates you present. Every single time. Jessica whipped toward him. Stay out of this, Daniel. The Riverside color theory breakdown, he continued, unfazed. Emily's background in design psychology. I asked her about it directly. She created that entire framework. Your presentation didn't mention her once. Marcus held up his hand. Everyone, let's take a breath. He looked at me, really looked at me, maybe for the first time in 18 months. Emily, these are serious allegations. You're saying Jessica has been taking credit for your work systematically? My throat tightened. This was it. The moment I could back down, smooth it over, keep the peace like I'd always done. Jessica was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen, part fury, part panic, part betrayal, like I was the one breaking our friendship. But we'd never been friends. Friends don't steal, friends don't erase. Yes, I said firmly. That's exactly what I'm saying. Jessica stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly. I can't believe this. After everything I've done for you, Emily. I mentored you, protected you, gave you confidence when you were too scared to speak up. You didn't give me confidence, I said quietly. You took my voice. Every time I tried to speak in meetings, you interrupted. Every time I had an idea, you talked over me and presented it as yours 5 minutes later. You didn't mentor me. You used me. That's not... Jessica's voice cracked. You were struggling. You needed me to... I needed a friend, I said, and suddenly my eyes were burning. I needed someone who had my back. Instead, I got someone who saw a quiet girl and decided she was easy to exploit. The words hung in the air like a detonation. Marcus cleared his throat. I think we need to pause this presentation. Jessica, Emily, both of you, my office in 30 minutes. I need to review these documents and have separate conversations with both of you. He looked at the rest of the team. "Everyone else, back to your projects. Now." The room emptied quickly, people avoiding eye contact with both of us. Daniel paused at the door, caught my eye, and gave me the smallest nod. When everyone was gone, Jessica turned to me. Her expression was cold now, the mask completely dropped. "You just made the biggest mistake of your career," she said softly. "You think anyone's going to believe the quiet little doormat over me? I'm the one with the promotions, the relationships, the reputation. You're nothing here, Emily. You always have been." Then she walked out, heels clicking sharply against the floor, and I stood there shaking, terrified, and for the first time in 18 months, free. The next 3 days were the longest of my life. Marcus had launched a formal investigation, standard HR protocol for workplace conduct allegations. I'd handed over everything, time-stamped documents, email chains, file metadata showing creation dates and modification histories, my original presentation decks. Everything that proved the work Jessica presented as hers had originated from my laptop, my research, my late nights. HR interviewed everyone in the department individually. I heard whispers in the break room that stopped when I walked in, saw people glance at me, then quickly look away. The office had split into invisible camps, those who believed me, those who stood by Jessica, and those who wanted nothing to do with the drama. Jessica, meanwhile, had launched her own campaign. "I can't believe Emily's doing this," I'd overheard her tell Sarah from design, her voice thick with hurt. "I tried so hard to help her come out of her shell. I gave her opportunities, included her in projects, and now she's claiming I stole her work? It's like, I don't even know who she is anymore." Some people bought it. Jessica was charismatic, popular, the life of office happy hours. I was the quiet girl who ate lunch alone half the time. Who would you believe? But cracks were forming in Jessica's narrative. Daniel had come forward with his own observations, specific meetings where he'd watched Jessica interrupt me, moments where she'd presented concepts he'd seen me working on days earlier. He'd kept notes, not realizing their significance until now. Marcus had discovered that the Riverside restaurant client, our first project together, had specifically praised the heritage meets modern concept in an email. The email was sent to Jessica at 9 a.m., time-stamped 2 hours after I'd sent her my complete strategy. Jessica had forwarded it to the client as her approach, without mentioning me. More discoveries followed. The tech startup social media calendar Jessica had pitched alone because I wasn't ready. The client had asked for the original creator's contact for a follow-up project. Jessica had given them her number, but the evidence didn't make the office environment any less toxic. People whispered. Some actively avoided me. Whether out of discomfort or loyalty to Jessica, I couldn't tell. Others offered quiet support. Maria from Analytics left encouraging sticky notes on my desk. Daniel started eating lunch with me in the small conference room, not saying much, just present. The worst part was seeing Jessica play the victim so effectively. She'd stopped coming to our shared department area, working from a hot desk on another floor. When we passed in hallways, she'd look through me like I didn't exist. She'd organized a team bonding dinner and invited everyone except me, making a very public statement about who belonged and who didn't. "She's isolating you," Daniel said one afternoon as we watched the team leave together for Jessica's dinner. "Classic manipulation tactic. Make you the outsider so everyone questions your credibility." He was right, and it was working. Even people who seemed sympathetic kept their distance. No one wanted to be associated with me if it meant losing Jessica's friendship or approval. I started having panic attacks in the bathroom, questioned everything. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I should have just stayed quiet, kept my head down, been grateful for the research support credit. Maybe confronting her had been the biggest mistake of my life, just like she'd said. But then, on day 4 of the investigation, something shifted. Marcus called me into his office. His expression was serious, unreadable. "Emily, thank you for your patience during this process. I want you to know we've completed our preliminary investigation." My heart hammered. "And?" "The evidence strongly supports your claims. File metadata, timestamps, email records. Everything indicates that the work Jessica has been presenting was created by you. Additionally, we found a pattern spanning multiple projects over the past 18 months. I felt simultaneously vindicated and exhausted. So what happens now? "Jessica will receive a formal written warning and mandatory ethics training. She'll be removed from the Hartwell pitch. That will be yours to present, with full credit. And she's being placed on a performance improvement plan. Any future incidents will result in immediate termination. Not fired. Not transferred. A written warning." My face must have shown my disappointment because Marcus sighed. "I know it doesn't feel like enough, but legally, this is the appropriate first formal consequence. However, Emily, and I want to be very clear about this, you were right to speak up. What happened to you was unacceptable, and I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." He paused. "The Hartwell presentation is rescheduled for next week. I want you to lead it. Your strategy, your vision, your name. Can you do that?" Could I? A week ago, I couldn't even finish a sentence in meetings. But I just confronted my manipulator in front of the entire team. I'd survived 3 days of office isolation. I'd found my voice when it mattered most. "Yes," I said, "I can." When I left Marcus's office, I felt lighter. Not happy exactly. The office environment was still tense. Jessica's glares still burned, and I knew the next weeks would be uncomfortable. But I felt seen, believed, valid. Daniel was waiting by my desk, pretending to look at his phone. When he saw my face, he smiled slightly. "Good news? The Hartwell pitch is mine, next week." "Good." He handed me a folder. "Then you'll want these. Additional design mock-ups for your transformation campaign. To make sure the credit goes to the right person this time." For the first time in days, I smiled genuinely. "Thank you, Daniel, for everything." "That's what actual teamwork looks like," he said simply. As he walked away, I opened the folder and saw Jessica across the office watching us. Her expression was cold, calculating. This wasn't over for her, but I wasn't the same scared, quiet girl anymore. The following Tuesday, I walked into the large conference room where we met with major clients. The Hartwell Group's VP of Marketing, Catherine Wells, sat at the head of the table alongside 2 other executives. Marcus was there, along with Daniel and 2 other Sterling senior staff. Jessica was noticeably absent. My hands were shaking as I set up my laptop, but this time the trembling felt different. Not fear, adrenaline, anticipation. This was my moment, my work, my voice. Catherine Wells smiled warmly. "You must be Emily. Marcus has told me about the circumstances. I appreciate integrity, and I'm looking forward to hearing your vision." I took a breath, clicked to the first slide, and began. "The Hartwell Group has built its reputation on luxury, tradition, and exceptional service. But in today's market, luxury alone isn't enough. Modern travelers, especially high-value millennials and Gen Z, aren't just looking for expensive hotels. They're looking for transformation." My voice was steady, clear. I'd practiced this presentation a dozen times in my apartment, but standing here, presenting my own work with my own name on it, felt surreal. I walked them through everything. The demographic analysis showing Hartwell's aging customer base, the competitor research revealing market gaps, the strategic positioning of transformation, not just transaction. I showed them the customer personas I'd developed, explained the journey mapping, unveiled the social media strategy featuring real transformation stories. Catherine leaned forward. This partnership framework, collaborating with local artists, wellness practitioners, cultural experts, how would that work operationally? I'd prepared for this. For 18 months, I'd watched Jessica present my ideas without understanding their foundation, but I'd built these strategies. I knew every detail, every nuance, every implementation challenge. We'd start with pilot programs in 3 flagship Hartwell properties, I explained, pulling up the operational breakdown. Partner with local creators to design unique experiences, not just excursions, but transformative journeys. A week-long wellness retreat designed by regional healers, art immersion weekends with local painters and sculptors, culinary transformation experiences with community chefs. I was in the zone now, completely present. Every question Catherine asked, I answered confidently. Every concern her team raised, I'd already anticipated in my strategy. Daniel caught my eye once during the presentation and gave me an almost imperceptible thumbs up. When I clicked to the final slide, projected ROI, timeline, and success metrics, Catherine sat back with an expression I recognized. The same look clients had given Jessica's presentations for 18 months. Impressed. "Emily, this is exceptional work," Catherine said. "The research is thorough, the strategy is innovative, and frankly, this is exactly the fresh perspective Hartwell needs. You've clearly understood not just our brand, but where luxury hospitality is." Heading. My chest tightened with emotion I had to push down. "Thank you. I'm passionate about this vision." Marcus jumped in. "Emily's been developing her strategic thinking for the past 1.5 years. We're excited to see her stepping into a leadership role on accounts like this." The meeting wrapped with handshakes, next steps, and contract discussions. As the Hartwell team left, Catherine paused by me. "Marcus mentioned you've been working behind the scenes for a while. I'm glad you're finally getting the spotlight you deserve. Looking forward to working with you directly, Emily." When the room cleared, Marcus turned to me. "That was outstanding. The Hartwell Group is moving forward with us, pending contract finalization, but Catherine called it a definite yes on her way out. This account is worth significant revenue, and Emily, you just became the lead strategist on Sterling's biggest client." I couldn't speak. 18 months of stolen credit, swallowed words, and invisible contributions had just culminated in this. My work, my voice, my success. Undeniable and witnessed. "There's something else," Marcus continued. "We're creating a senior analyst position. You'd be promoted, leading strategy development for major accounts. Significant raise, your own office, direct reports. Interested?" Was I interested? In recognition? In opportunities? In finally being seen for my actual abilities? "Yes," I whispered, then stronger. "Yes, absolutely." Daniel waited outside the conference room. "So, how'd it go?" They loved it, and Marcus just offered me a promotion. His face broke into a genuine grin. "That's amazing, Emily. Seriously. You earned every bit of this." As we walked back to the department, I saw Jessica at her temporary desk across the floor. She was watching, and for a moment our eyes met. Her expression was complicated. Anger, jealousy, something that might have been grudging respect. She looked away first. The office dynamics had shifted noticeably. People who'd avoided me last week were suddenly congratulating me on landing Hartwell. Sarah from design stopped by my desk with coffee. "That must feel really good," she said quietly, "getting to present your own work. I'm sorry I should have said something sooner." "It's okay," I told her, and meant it. I should have said something sooner, too. By end of day, the news had spread. Emily Carter, the quiet girl everyone talked over, had just landed the biggest account of the quarter. With her own strategy, her own presentation, her own voice. And for the first time since I'd started at Sterling & Associates, when I spoke in the afternoon team meeting, people actually listened. 6 months later. My new office was small but mine. Actual walls, a door that closed, a window overlooking downtown Seattle. The nameplate outside read, "Emily Carter, Senior Marketing Strategist." Some mornings I still had to touch it to believe it was real. The Hartwell account had been a massive success. Our Transformation Not Just Transaction campaign launched in 3 pilot properties and exceeded projected bookings by 34%. Catherine Wells specifically requested me for their expansion strategy, and I'd just returned from a site visit to their flagship property in Colorado. I had a team now, 2 junior analysts who actually listened when I spoke, who asked questions, who credited my ideas when presenting to clients. Teaching them felt surreal. I made sure to mentor them the way Jessica never mentored me, with honesty, attribution, and genuine support. The office environment had gradually normalized. The whispers stopped. People engaged with me professionally, respectfully. I'd even started attending office happy hours occasionally, though I still preferred small groups to large crowds. Maria from Analytics had become a real friend. We grabbed lunch twice a week. Daniel and I collaborated regularly on integrated campaigns, and his quiet support during those awful investigation days had cemented a genuine friendship. And Jessica, that was complicated. After the written warning and losing the Hartwell account, Jessica had gone through a rough period. She'd worked from home for 2 weeks, then returned subdued and noticeably less sparkly. Gone were the power blazers and commanding presence. She dressed more simply, spoke more carefully, stopped organizing exclusive team dinners. Some people remained loyal to her. Others kept their distance. She'd essentially lost her social currency, the popularity and influence she'd wielded so effectively. For 3 months, we existed in parallel universes, same office, zero interaction. Then, about 4 months after the confrontation, Jessica had appeared at my office door. She looked different, tired, uncertain. "Can we talk?" she'd asked quietly. Every instinct screamed to say no, but curiosity won. "Okay." She'd sat across from me, hands twisted in her lap. Body language I'd never seen from confident, commanding Jessica Monroe. "I owe you an apology. A real one, not an HR-mandated one." I'd waited, silent. "What I did was wrong. Taking credit for your work, manipulating situations, isolating you when you spoke up, all of it. I told myself I was mentoring you, that I was helping you find your voice, but the truth is..." She'd paused, swallowing hard. "I was threatened by you, from day one." That surprised me. "Threatened?" "You were talented, creative, brilliant with strategy. I saw it immediately. And instead of celebrating that or learning from you, She'd looked away. "I tried to diminish you, make you small so I could look bigger. It was insecure and cruel, and I'm sorry." The apology felt genuine, but I wasn't ready to forgive. Not yet. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I've been in therapy for 3 months trying to understand why I did it, and because you deserved better. You deserved a real friend, a real mentor, a real partner. Instead, you got me at my worst." She'd stood to leave. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that you were right about everything, and I'm sorry." She'd walked out before I could respond. I'd sat there for a long time, processing. The apology didn't erase 18 months of manipulation, didn't undo the damage, but it was something, an acknowledgement, an acceptance of responsibility. Over the following months, Jessica had quietly rebuilt herself. She'd completed her performance improvement plan, delivered solid work without stealing credit, started actually collaborating with teammates. People noticed. Slowly, cautiously, she began regaining some professional respect. Not the blind loyalty she'd commanded before, but something more genuine. We weren't friends, probably never would be, but we'd achieved something like professional civility. We'd nod in hallways, collaborate when projects required it. Last week, we'd actually worked together on a client pitch, genuinely together, with both our names credited, and it had gone well. Could people really change? I didn't know, but I knew I had. The quiet girl who couldn't finish sentences in meetings now led strategy presentations for Fortune 500 clients. The doormat who swallowed every injustice had found her voice, not by becoming loud or aggressive, but by becoming clear, confident, unshakable in my worth. My mom called last week, and I told her about the promotion, the successful accounts, the team I was building. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. You used your voice." "Yeah," I'd said, smiling. "I finally did." This morning, Marcus announced another major client prospect, a national retail chain looking for a complete brand refresh. "Emily, I want you leading this pitch. Build your team, develop the strategy, show them what Sterling can do." As I walked back to my office, passing colleagues who greeted me by name, respected my expertise, actually listened when I spoke, I realized something. Jessica had tried to steal my work, my credit, my voice, but she'd never touched the core of who I was, my talent, my integrity, my worth. Those were always mine. I just needed to believe it. And now, I finally did.